Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live, everyone. Amid increasing calls in Washington for the U.S. to ban imports of Russian oil prices trended on social media over the weekend as awareness grows among consumers anticipating pressure at the pump and as businesses brace for higher operating expenses. West Texas Intermediate, and Brent crude touched levels not seen in 14 years. WTI touching $130 a barrel, while Brent was just shy of $140 a barrel at the day's high. Let's also check in on gasoline futures tracked by ticker RBOB. That's sitting right now at about $3.57, or up on the day by about 0.7%.
Well, as Brad mentioned, oil prices soared today with West Texas Intermediate reaching its highest level since 2008 and topping $130 per barrel at session highs. This comes as the White House and some European allies consider a ban on Russian oil imports amid the war in Ukraine. For more on the energy market outlook, we're welcoming in Margarita Balmaceda, Seton Hall University Professor of Diplomacy and International Relations. Margarita, thanks for joining us this afternoon or this evening. Good evening. And how would a Russian crude oil import ban impact the U.S. versus Europe, given the share of Russian crude being brought in by these regions?
The impact in Europe will be much more significant because they are more dependent on those imports. The U.S. has not only a larger degree of self-sufficiency, but it also can ramp up production much faster than European partners. So that is one reason we are seeing some tension between the US and Europe in terms of the timing of a possible embargo. But nevertheless, there is more agreement in oil than in natural gas, but we can perhaps discuss that later.
Right. And one thing that you pointed out in your notes to us regarding the oil market is that the fact that Russia does have different brands of crude, types of light and dark oil products that may not be as readily available from other sources. So tell us more about how these factors would impact US and European markets if these Russian imports were cut off.
Yes, absolutely. So the key export brand for Russia is Urals. Sometimes they call it the REPCO, Russian export blend. And there's two elements that is very important to keep in mind here. First, there's a number of refineries that can only use that kind of oil. They can also use lighter oil, but that leads to higher operation costs. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. And the way we are seeing that impact is as a lot of that oil has not found buyers in the last week, because of a statement made by the companies about not purchasing Russian oil. This is leading to higher operational costs for refineries in the Czech Republic, some of them in Germany, which have been specified for working with that kind of medium sour crude oil, such as Urals. So that is one element, increased costs for those refineries. The second element is the fact that certain companies made a statement by stopping to buy that Urals oil. Then suddenly, 2 days ago, Shell comes back and buys $20 million, and then it's trying to pedal back, explain why it's doing that. So it's a little bit unclear why they are doing that. Now, the way that would affect the US, that again is affecting the US indirectly, but it's affecting more the European partners of the US and their refineries here, because they can function with other types of oil, but that will increase the operation costs for that oil, for that refinery.
And even now, just the discussion of a potential import ban has sent crude prices even higher, which ostensibly does benefit Russia in the meantime. How much of a boost is Russia getting from this latest oil price spike? And do you think that this is now factoring into the decision of whether or not this import ban actually does go through, more so than just the talk that we've been hearing right now?
Well, it should impact it. Russia is getting a boost because anytime there is an increase in the price of oil, that benefits Russia as well. Even when we have seen significant increases in differential between Urals oil and Brent or West Texas Intermediate. So that differential is increasing significantly. That is bad for Russia, but nevertheless, the increase in prices is very good for the Russian budget. So that is affecting the discussion about an embargo, because if you keep talking about an embargo, you drive prices up. And then if you do not implement the embargo, that is creating a benefit, larger import amount for somebody like Russia. So that is a negative situation. So I would suggest that there needs to be a clear agreement on whether there will be an embargo or maybe a stage embargo, a reduction in the amount of purchases, and that is implemented simultaneously by the US and the European allies, because all this talk about embargoes with no embargoes simply drives up prices and benefits Russia, which is exactly what we do not want to do.
And where do you think this goes in the future? What does this mean, especially for Europe, which has historically been more dependent on Russian energy and natural gas in particular? Do you think the countries in Western Europe are going to be able to move away from Russian imports and to alternatives? And how long might that take?
Well, that's a very good question, because tomorrow there's going to be a very important meeting of the European Commission, and the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, already said that in that meeting tomorrow there will be a very ambitious package of measures that will be introduced to wean the European Union states from Russian energy. I have not seen the final document. There have been some leaks that I have seen, and it's a package that relies mainly on renewables. It's a package that argues Europe could increase significantly imports of LNG by October. I'm a little bit skeptical about whether those two things alone can really make significant changes without a clear move towards temporary use of nuclear power plants. I am not sure what they are going to propose concerning nuclear power plants, but that's going to be a key area. And we're already seeing disagreement between European partners concerning this issue. Denmark is pushing for an even more ambitious EU package. Germany is saying we cannot do it. So that's an issue, and I hope that tomorrow they will find agreement, because that would be very important. But it's also very important to differentiate between the short term. Perhaps in the short term, you can have measures about coal, nuclear power, and the longer term where the only solution is moving away from fossil fuels.
Margarita Balmaceda, Seton Hall University Professor of Diplomacy and International Relations, thank you again so much for your time.